Welcome back to The Division. In this video, I want to talk to you guys about not only the latest global event that's running, but also basically the question. I want to see your guys' input on this, and some of you are probably going to know way more than I do. But I'm asking the question, what happened to The Division 2? Where did it go wrong and why did it go wrong? Because when Massive Entertainment released The Division 1 in 2016, it had a lot of problems. A hell of a lot of problems. And a lot of the major title updates and stuff people were not happy with. But now, playing this game 5 years later in 2021, it's in a really, really good spot. You feel powerful with your classified gear sets, you have the global events that come on, and they actually have benefits to the player. It's worth playing every single global event that comes onto this game. They also have the underground where you have the directives, and these directives have a positive and a negative for the player. Whereas you go to the Division 2, your directives are pretty much only a negative. They help the computer, the NPCs, the AI, whatever you want to call them, they help that portion of the game instead of helping the player. And when the Division 2 first launched, they had a positive and a negative to attachments on weapons, but players weren't happy with it, so they decided to take off the negative, just have a positive, but lower the percentages and stuff, and they did a lot of changing things around, and that's all they seemed to do. But after the Division 1, making their mistakes, messing up with a lot of it, and then eventually fixing it and getting it into a good state when they kind of stopped updating the game, they released the Division 2 with the marketing that they had learnt from their mistakes in the Division 1, and that the Division 2 was going to be a much better game. Granted, when the game first came out, it had a very, very good positive response from the community. And that was mainly playing through the story. It had very, very high review scores. Then they released, everyone got to the end game, they started releasing title updates, new content come in every now and then through the year one pass and stuff, and it just went downhill when they started working on the game and doing more, because the Division 2 didn't actually launch with 5 world tiers. It only launched with 4, and they eventually released Tidal Basin with World Tier 5. And they had really bad issues with the World Tiers. There were players, and this happened at least a year after as well. Every now and then it popped up. Players were unable to actually progress to the next World Tier because there was an issue with the prompt that popped up. And just everything went wrong. They released Warlords of New York, and they had a game-breaking bug at the very, very beginning of their paid expansion, to the point of you not actually being able to interact with the safe house leaders that would give you missions to progress. So we all had to wait 24 hours after paying for it. And not only that, I think PC players were supposed to get it early. Xbox players actually got it the earliest. There was just issue after issue with the game, and then they released the summit and kind of finished up with their seasons and stuff. And it was even worse. When the summit first came out, the hunters on floor 100 were able to shoot you through walls and stuff. And they said there was going to be a lot of new stuff coming into the summit, but they kind of just ditched it and just did quality of life changes to it and fixed a few things here and there. And then they had this rotation of the objectives just being very, very frequent. And none of it was really good. Also with their raids and everything, they had some of the best teams or the fastest teams in the world or whatever. They had info to all these leaks that gave you the gameplay mechanics. Yet they still ran these world's first competitions and stuff, and there were so many issues. But in the Division 1, you load this game up now, and you've got the legendaries, you've got incursions, you've got the resistance, survival, the dark zone. There's so much to do in the Division 1 that a lot of players actually returned. If you go to the underground, that place is absolutely packed with players. People send you invites all the time. Whenever you go down into the underground, you're there for no longer than 2 to 3 minutes and you'll have an invite from a player. They released this new global event called Assault, and it's just so much fun to play. You jump on, we did Resistance, I think we managed wave 39, you'll see it in the footage. I can't remember exactly, but we started playing because Assault, basically you turn on the global event or it's active or whatever, and when enemies get close to you, you deal more damage to them. So I'm taking a classified Reclaimer set which is set for healing, and I'm dealing 125k headshots. I'm getting kills as though I'm running DPS. Then you put on a Striker DPS set, and you're dealing I saw 400,000 to 500,000 damage headshots. the damage you deal was insane. It makes clearing content so much easier. But you go to the global events in the Division 2, and all you have is you've got Reanimated, Guardians, there's a few others, Polarity Switch, and what does it do? There's not really a positive. Instead, for Polarity Switch, at least when they first ever released it, you would literally have to make sure that if you've got the blue arm, you're shooting the blue enemies, and then once you reload, it changes to your arm going orange, then you have to kill the orange enemies, and it was more like a puzzle than it was a fun event for players to participate in. And they don't have anything like the classified sets in the Division 2, so I believe they do have a store now where you can use stars that you've earned from the event, but I've not paid too much attention to it because they don't have what the Division 1 has. They pretty much took it back to a lot of the gameplay mechanics being bare bones. There's no classified sets, the exotics, most of them actually suck. The amount of content, there was no new game modes or anything like that, like Survival, Resistance, Underground, none of that actually come into the Division 2. We just had a full-blown expansion in New York, and then the Summit and a couple of raids. I would have much preferred to have some of these game modes in the Division 2. And especially after all of their marketing that they did, their strategy to promote and hype up the game, it was just a lie. They didn't learn from any of their mistakes with the Division 1 because there were some mistakes they made in the Division 1 which actually turned out to be even worse in the Division 2. And time again, week in, week out, players complained and said, all of my talents are broken, my skills aren't working. The Revive Hive went through 2 years of issues in the Division 2. In the Division 1, instead of a Revive Hive, or a different skill should I say, because it's not necessarily the Revive Hive was a replacement, but in the Division 1 you have a support station. You can put it down, and if you're running the classified reclaimer, it gives you the benefits, the buffs of all 3 different support stations. So you get the good healing for your team, you get the immunity to grenades and stuff, so if the enemy's chuck an incendiary grenade at you, you're not going to be set on fire. Then you've also got, when you reload, it's like an ammo box, so you reload and it doesn't consume your ammo. There are so many more benefits to things in the Division 1 as to what there are in the Division 2. Division 2 has its good points. Not too many of what I can think of off the top of my head. But there are good things. There was a decent amount of content in there and enough of a grind, should I say. Not a decent amount of content. There was enough of a grind in there that was validated for 1,000 hours plus. But there was nothing that, once you've got all the exotics, you've got a very good build, there was nothing to really go back for. And yet you see these content creators still gripping on with everything they've got, trying to, they're trying their hardest to basically revive the Division 2. And I just don't think it's ever going to happen. I don't think they're going to make a Division 3. And people seem to think because of Heartland coming out, if that does well, then they're going to release a Division 3. That's probably not going to happen, purely because Massive Entertainment are a limited company. They don't have an infinite amount of employees. So whilst Red Storm are working on Heartland and Massive Entertainment are working on new content for the Division 2 for Year 4, or if it releases at the end of Year 3, because don't forget, in March 2022, the game officially goes into its 4th year. But they're working on that, and they're also working on a brand new, from the ground up Star Wars game and Avatar game, which are set to release in 2022 and I believe 2023. Not entirely sure on the release dates, but they've got their hands full with projects. I really don't think they're working on the Division 3, although I might be completely wrong. You never ever know. They might have started work on the Division 3 back in 2019 when they released the Division 2. We don't actually know what's going on behind the scenes, behind closed doors, within the company. However you want to word it, we don't know what's going on. But if they never started the work, because they started working on the Division 2 shortly after the Division 1 came out, and if they haven't done that same thing working on the Division 3 after the Division 2 launched, then I don't think we're going to see it. If we will, it's not going to be for 5 or 6 years or something like that, and that's if there's enough people in the community begging for it. But after the complete disaster that the Division 2 was, I don't think there's going to be enough people screaming and shouting from the rooftops for Ubisoft to pick up on it and say to Massive, we want you to work on this. They're working on a movie, they're making a book, they've got Heartland, they've got a mobile game, they're working on Star Wars, they're working on Avatar, and that's not just necessarily Massive Entertainment, that's Ubisoft and all of its little companies like Red Storm, Massive, all the companies that are involved in the Division franchise. That's all the sort of stuff they're working on. So it's not even just the Division stuff anymore. They're working on a lot of stuff at the moment. So I don't think the Division 3 is anywhere near ready if they're even working on it. I don't think it's in the pipeline for at least 5 years. And that's if they ever make it. But what I'm going to do before the video goes on for like half an hour plus and blah blah blah. Basically, we've had a little chat about it. I've put my thoughts out there, my opinions on what's happening within the Division 2. But I still have that question. What did actually happen to it? Like, where did it go wrong? Why did it go wrong? What actually happened to the game? And why, after the Division 1 and the ups and downs that had, why was the Division 2 at some points even worse? I'm going to leave you with that question. I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you enjoyed it.